afternoon, class. My name is Pamela Ramirez Contreras. As you can see me on their picture, I put a little picture of myself so you can see who I am. And I decided to write about Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And also I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the Jello wallpaper. The reason I choose this is because I thought it was a real interesting topic, and this novel was like really good. And a lot of people, they compare their lives with this kind of story, just like Miss Charlotte Perkins did. And let's go ahead and start. Charlotte Perkins Gilman. We all know that she was a novelist, a poet, a lecturer, and social commentator. She also was a journalist with a major influence on countless women past and present. She also got really famous because the story, The Yellow Wallpaper, it was one of my favorite stories during this class. Now I'm going to be talking about her biography, a little bit more about her history and what she did and who she got married to and who was her family. So Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she was born on Charlotte Anna Perkins on July 3rd of 1860 in Hartford, Connecticut. She was the youngest child, and she was the daughter of Frederick Perkins and Mary Ann Fitch Westcott. She also was the great niece of the 19th century of the writer, really famous Harriet Beecher, who was the author of the Uncle Tom is Cabin. This was a really good story that I also read before. After two siblings of Gilman died, her mother was told not to have any other children, and Gilman, his father, abandoned them shortly afterward. Without the support of their father, Gilmer and her family were left in the state of extreme poverty and were forced to move from relative to relative. So they were moving from one family to the other in order to survive, which that was really tough for her during that time, because this is everything that she could do in order to survive. And whenever you're a mom and you have a child and you don't have the husband's support without no job and you're left alone, you have to do a lot of stuff because you have children in order to support them. Which later on, we can see that Mary Ann Fitch, the mom of Miss Charlotte Perkins, she decided to be a little rough toward her kid, and the way that she was not showing a lot of love. And she did it because she thought that was gonna hurt her daughter in case that she passed for any the type of experience that she went through. She thought, this is the only way that you're gonna learn to not miss anyone and learn how to be and do good by yourself. So let's keep going. And we can say that after her father was gone, Gilmer's mother grew increasingly cold and detached, like I said. She was striving to protect her children from suffering by denying them affection. So, like I said priorly, she was denying a lot of attentions to them. And without desire for affection for others, she believed Gilmer and her sibling will be self-reliant and emotionally independent, without thinking that they actually were needing that. They need that affection in order to grow better in life, but she lacked that from them, denying to give it to them. So it was a little tough for them because due to that, Gilmer decided to choose, I'm not gonna say kind of run option, but another choices that she would have chosen if she was having a different affection coming from her mom, and she was lacking the father of his father and the mother affection. Gilmer often retreated to the public library to overcome her loneliness. So she was looking in her library something that she was not getting from her parents since her dad left her mom whenever she was young, and her mother was not giving her affection at all, so they can have they can self-reliant on themselves. She was spending much of her time studying civilization and reading texts about philosophy and historical development, which kind of helped her to to in somehow how have this loneliness space to like fill with something, because she was just feeling loneliness without her parents' support. A little bit more about her was that in 1878, Gilman enrolled in the Rhode Island School of Design, supporting herself as a tutor and an artist of trade cards. In 1883, Gilman published her first work, sending articles and poems to the Province Journal, the Womanist Journal, the Century, and the Christian Register. In 1884, Gilmer consented to marry Charles Walter Stetson, a handsome, aspiring artist who had courted her intensely the previous year. 3 months after their marriage, Gilmer learned that she was pregnant and began to suffer from some symptoms of depression. This we realized that her pregnancy was like a little tough to her since she didn't have that man there to show her a lot of care. She was kind of getting depressed, which it was a lot, becoming overwhelmed for her. But after the birth of her daughter, which she named Catherine, in 1885, Gilman became so overwhelmed with depression that she decided to be treated with Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell. He was the one that was helping her with her depression. He was a prominent physician who favored the rescuer for the treatment of nervous disorder. That's what she was having. Through Gilman attempt to adhere to Michael's prescription, she was unable to tolerate the treatment for more than a few months. Later on, she decided to satirize the treatment in the yellow wallpaper. This means satirize is the meaning of applying. She decided to apply her own history or her own feeling towards this book. She was putting this woman of a woman that her role was not to have thoughts, that she was not able to choose what she wanted. She was trapped into the walls without being able to to choose her own choices, what she really wanted in life. Because during that time, back in the day, in 19th century, we know that women thought it was like worthless. It was just a guy that was there to support them, and they were the last word. Like the women were not allowed to talk too much, said whatever they felt. They were like trapped in this yellow wallpaper, which she felt that she was trapped since her dad left her mom and left her, and her mom was lacking this affection to give to her. She was just putting all this emotion together, which was affecting and getting her to be depressed. And the Yellow Wallpaper was a really good book that I really enjoyed a lot, and it was published in 1892. 1888, Gilman separated from Stetson. That was her husband that she married, and she decided to move to California. The couple divorced, meaning Gilmer and Stetson, was in 1894. And she decided to send her daughter to be raised by her as husband, that was Mr. Stetson, and his new wife. During that time, she decided to go to California, and she became extremely active in social reform. And it was better for, she thought it was better for her and for her daughter to be raised by her as husband and his wife, since she was not having that mental stability that she needed. She also began to write prolifically, publishing 15 essays, numerous poems, and a novella in 1890. Gilmer's first volume of poems, and these were published in 1893. First brought her public recognition from a literary perspective. Her book, Woman and Economics, 1898. And that book also won her international recognition. It was recognized for it. After the death of her mother, Gilmer returned to the East Coast and married Hunter Gilmer, her first cousin, in 1900. Her second marriage was actually more successful than her first one, and Gilmer continued to be, successful woman and wrote numerous works, including The Home, Its Work and Influence in 1903. Also, she wrote The Moving the Mountain in 1911. And another one really good that she wrote was that Utopian Test Hurling in 1915. Gilmer also began to write her autobiography, The Living of Charlotte Perkins Gilman, in 1925. That was basically, saying her story and where she was born and all the struggles that she was going through life. A little bit more about her. In 1932, Gilman was diagnosed with malignant breast cancer after her husband died suddenly in 1934. Gilmer moved back to California to live near to her daughter. In 1935, she committed suicide with an overdose of chloroform. Writing in her suicide note that she chose chloroform over cancer. So she believed that she didn't want to go through all the pain and all the stuff of having cancer, since it was malignant and they told her it was no cure for it. She just decided to suicide. After her death, onto the middle of the 1950s, Gilmer largely disappeared from the world is literature scholarship. If anything, historian merely highlighted Gilman as a figure of the suffrage movement and failed to recognize her literacy achievement on a serious level. Gilmer finally began to receive recognition for her work with the womanist movement and developed her feminist scholarship in 1960 and 1970. So after her death, a lot of people didn't recognize her work, but after they decided that it was a really good, story, feminist. in the 60s and 70s, which she was a woman trapped basically into the walls, and that lead her to suicide. Well, like we said earlier, basically the woman's role in the yellow wallpaper was to be a wife and a mother. They could not vote or own property, just a man could do that. Women were to be pure, domestic, and submissive. And this was one of the things that Gilmore did, which drive her a little insane. The feminist movement had just begun as a radical French ideology largely dismissed by the mainstream woman. Women could not live on their own. They were just trapped. Man was their boss, basically. And their husband or father served as their guardians. So they were the one that choose for them and were, their boys. They were just afraid to do or talk without their permission. And who's the woman and the wallpaper? That was a woman trapped there, like we can see in the picture. Really good picture that I got online on Google is showing a dark spot there on the wall of a woman, because this is what this novel was about. It was just a woman trap. Like the person that wrote the book said, a woman is trapped within suffocating domestic pattern from which no escape is possible. However, she tears off the paper to be free, the woman and herself, but she decides to choose a wrong choice, and that was to suicide in order to be free. And that's it. This is all I have for you guys. And I really recommend this book. I didn't put a lot about it, but if you really want to know more about it, you can go ahead and Google it and find a lot of more information. It's a great story. And I believe it can teach you a lot, and not just to adults. I think it can teach also to children's, and that's some good story to know and to see what life can be when you choose the wrong choices. Alrighty, thank you for spending your time watching my video, and it's late already. It's like 10 o'clock, so I wish you guys the best and good night, and I have wonderful rest of the summer. I really enjoyed this course and my presentation. Bye.